If you're interested in what I look like in real life and want to learn more about me, then follow my Instagram page at Joe the Insomniak. Hello everyone. My paracetamols and antibiotics have finally started working, and for the first time in over 3 months I actually feel relatively well and normal. Sorry I couldn't upload for the last week. I really was suffering with my chest infection, but it's mostly gone now. I think the reason that I was getting unwell so much was just from not taking care of myself enough or resting. I'm glad to be back, and I love doing forest stories. I hope everyone's doing well. If you follow me on my Instagram or Twitter, you'll see the post I made recently where I said that I'd like to take this year to help people with mental health issues. I still do, and I'm going to be doing more work towards that in the future that I'm excited about. But today, I just want to say, make sure that you love yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. So I hope you're all doing great, and now to the video. I'd like to begin by describing myself, because I believe it's relevant to my story. I have to assume that I'm not the average author here. I'm 25, male, a bit above average height. I've been doing sports 5 or 6 times a week since I graduated high school. Gym, running, CrossFit, squash, swimming, and any team sport my friends decide to play at any given time. My hobbies include mountaineering, hiking, and bouldering. I just recently purchased a new high altitude mountaineering boot because it's near the end of the summer season and they're on sale. The plan is to wear them in the Alps next summer on a few ascents. I live in a European capital, one that's surrounded by wonderful nature with many trails, as well as opportunities for hiking. I decided to break in my boots last Sunday, more specifically, because it would have been my granddad's birthday. He loved to hike before he passed away. These boots are overkill for these woods, but I needed to try them. I selected a nice route that's around 25 kilometers and set off at about 9 in the morning. It rained just before, so I expected a fair amount of mud and not so many people, as these are easily scared off by the weather. Since the summer was excruciatingly hot, it was a nice change of temperature, especially between trees and such, where it's a few degrees cooler than in the city. So in the not so distant past, my dog would have definitely joined me on my hike, but she's turning 15 this year and doesn't like long distant walks anymore. My girlfriend had to do something for work upon short notice, so I knew from that moment I would be doing this alone. Now the first part of the hike was perfect. The altitude difference wasn't too bad. I barely broke a sweat, and I misjudged how many people would be out due to the storm the day before. I met about 6 or 7 people in the first 2 or 3 hours, and most of them were cross-country runners. It's worth mentioning that I wasn't walking quickly. I stopped upon many occasions to take pictures or study some animal tracks. There are deer and wild boars in these woods. Nothing menacing. Now between 12 and 1, the path ran into an actual road, one where cars can go. This road is asphalt, but deep in the forest, and can only be used to reach certain landmarks that are also in the forest, so cars are very, very rare here. Now the trail that I was on required me to go slow sometimes. Now as I'm walking down the road, I hear a car approaching from behind me. It goes past me, not too quick or slow. It was an older green SUV with a fresh registration, probably an import. Anyway, I thought nothing of it at the time. Then I heard it come back. It drove past me for the second time. Now, very slow. I could clearly see two men sitting in the front seats, wearing baseball caps and sunglasses. Both had beard game going on as well. I assumed they were gameskeepers, even though those cars have a crest on the hood and both doors. As I hike a fair amount, I knew these things. I see them around a bit. They would also not be driving a car like this. They have jeeps which are more suitable for the forest. I feel no discomfort, and again, think nothing of it. Then, my trail left the asphalt road and began to snake through the woods again. I walk ahead, gazing at trees and whatnot. Then I suddenly had the strange sensation that something or someone was behind me. An engine sound was becoming more and more clear. At this point the trail was narrow, but if for whatever reason you wanted to drive a car on it, you could. Now if I turned around, I could aforemention the SUV and see that it was basically in my face. It was an arm's length away from me, and it stopped as I had. I look at the driver who's staring back at me. They're wearing sunglasses. I calmly ask, "What's wrong?" "Shall I let you go on?" in a polite but irritated tone as his window begins to roll down. He didn't speak. He slowly begins reversing and slowly disappeared behind a curve. Now I was quite uncomfortable. I also noticed that he's alone in the car, unlike earlier. I listened intently, standing still, since I wasn't sure what was going on. Now, I'm scared, but there was a faint feeling of unease in the air, and bad thoughts gathered in the back of my mind. I heard the car and the engine stop just behind the curve. I heard a door open and shut, but nothing beyond that point on. I turned around and began walking towards my destination at a much faster pace than before. Now I was a bit scared. I didn't understand why he didn't answer, and why he simply reversed and didn't say a word. I wasn't sure what to make of it, and I had no desire to ask him again, or see him for that matter. I'm really struggling to take these unpleasant thoughts out of my head. Now, I've been drinking a lot of water like normal, especially up on these hikes, and I decide to pee. I see a perfect spot, a very narrow path off my trail that led me quite clearly to a little hunting tower. I don't know what they're called in English. Wooden structures, couple meters tall, very simple, where hunters can go sit and wait for their prey. I walk over to the tower, put my bag down by the ladder that led up to it and begin peeing. I'm also interested in checking Google Maps to see where I am, but notice that there's no signal here. I decide to check my map. Also have a sip of water. I've been camping there for a good few minutes before I head back. Right before I ride back to the main trail, I thought to myself how extremely quiet it is. No wind, no noise of any kind, nothing. This made me realise Just a moment later, how alone I was. Except, the man who was standing maybe 50 meters away from me on the trail, in the direction where I was heading. I only saw this as soon as I stepped back on the trail, since the small one to the tower was well hidden by trees, and you couldn't see the main trail, as it was running perpendicular to the small one. I look at him. I was instantly chilled to the very bone. He was dressed in tactical clothing with a baseball hat on. The only reason he was standing still, I believe, was a moment of surprise that I had appeared from a place where he didn't expect me to appear from. At this point, I'm fully and utterly alarmed. He was holding a rifle that had a scope on it. Had this happened without the incident on the trail with the SUV, I would have probably walked along it thinking he's a hunter. However, in light of the strange encounter with the SUV, from which the second man was missing, something in me snapped instantly. In hindsight, it's also illegal to hunt in these woods at this time of year, so in a matter of seconds, I realise what's going on, and I sprint through the woods until exhaustion, towards and past the tower, as it seemed natural to do at the time. If there was no malicious intent on this man's behalf, or the others, he'll just think I'm an idiot and forget about me in minutes. Though if I'm correct, it's the best call I'll ever make, and for Christ's sake, he began running towards me. Adrenaline blossoming within me, I begin sprinting. I sprint past the tower, deep into the bushes, and not throwing my legs as I was wearing shorts and a thermal jumper. I crashed through the branches, small trees slipping on several occasions. I really did sprint until I'm exhausted. It must have been several kilometers. I even crossed some smaller trails, but didn't even bother looking either way. My pulse, 1,000,000,000. The whole time. I began checking my phone for signal, but nothing. I'm on my own now, no help. I was already angry at myself for not memorizing the license plate. I'm worried now, in a lonely place. After a while, I began power walking, but still off trail, straight ahead, in a direction that I knew would sooner or later lead me out of the woods. When my phone got a signal, I told the story to several people frantically, but no one took me seriously. They said I'm overreacting and whatnot. You must have misunderstood the situation. Well, I'll let you decide that for yourself if I did or not. Finally, I reached a trail that led directly to a cute little town that borders this rather large forest. It felt like an eternity, but I walked the longest road, back to the main square, take off my jumper, putting it in my bag. At least I looked a little different from far away, still scared, and alone. I wait for a bus that took me back to a station near my car, rather anxiously, after the bus ride, during which I studied each car on the road. I walked back to my car, got in and drove home. My dog welcomed me when I come back from a 2-year deployment. Dogs are amazing. They feel your pain and help you. She must have felt that something was up. I spent the afternoon contemplating my life in the tub, boots destroyed by my feet, but they aren't meant to be sprinted in for large periods of time. I call the gamekeeper's office, inquire about whether they have such cars. They do not. Their gamekeepers also typically work in pairs. 99.9% of the time, they're not alone. I told them my story. They took me very seriously. They assured me that the police wouldn't do anything though. No one could have been legally hunting in the area during the summer either. I've been reading local news but haven't found anything yet. I'm just glad I escaped.